Exactly. Now, Noordean, you mentioned of the jeers and cheers at Bomas, and a few things you felt like this is not okay. But even as you embark on your statement, there were things that, or there were issues that were pointed out by Deputy President. That was the judiciary. There was also a concern in regards to the political parties choosing the commissioners of the IEBC. What do you make of this?
I believe the concerns are valid, because at the end of the day, if you say you want a judiciary ombudsman appointed by the president, you know, in Kenya, as we see, he's bound to be manipulated, all right? Because the ombudsman is supposed to have reports, supposed to take down. Currently, the ombudsman, that role is being played by the DCJ, all right? So when you say now the president will appoint someone who is going to take reports on cases against magistrates and judges, won't there be a scenario where certain judges who are seen to be anti-government would be blackmailed via that? Because the independence of that person who is going to be sent to that office, how are we sure that they will be impartial? And this is Kenya that we know, you know. So we are talking about strengthening institutions. We want institutions to stand on their 2 feet, all right? And we don't want external forces. It's hard, I know it's hard, but that's what we're trying to do. So if we're told that we're trying to make the judiciary strong, start by giving it more funds. Because the other thing, give it more funds, swear in the judges that you haven't sworn in to date, and let the judiciary handle its affairs. You know, the same way we need Parliament to stop being lapdogs as they are and stand on their 2 feet. If Parliament would stand like what we saw Senate trying to do with Team Kenya, if Parliament was like that, then we would be far. Because we need Parliament to act as a check for the executive. But what we have is that, like what we saw in Naivasha, they are busy talking about how it must pass. You must pass it. You know, a simple question, when you ask someone out here, if we take a walk, you ask someone, what's BBI? They don't know what BBI is. They only know BBI is about Prime Minister, 2 deputies, and whatnot, with a few sweeteners here and there. And the wrong thing those guys who are in charge of BBI did was they assumed that every single person in Kenya has gone to school. So they publish a document in English. That's number one. They assume that everyone can see. So they forgot that they are blind people. So you need to be sensitive when you're doing certain things. You're talking about the country moving forward. So when you tell people, go and read, if I never went to school, that document is 204 pages. Do I have time for that? You won't have time for it. So they haven't done civic education. Then they're telling you now, we have read, so you might as well pass it. What are we passing? You know, because most of the things they're talking about there, which I'm calling sweeteners, can't be done via Parliament. When you talk about the HELB, the 4-year grace period, that can be done by a Parliament. You know, actually, when you write a letter to HELB and tell them, you know what, I've graduated, but I don't have an occupation, they'll tell you, okay, when you get one, you will solve it. That can be done easily by a letter, you know. Right. So when you talk about empowering the young men and women, you can do it. You have the executive authority. You don't need a certain referendum, which we know the main reason for the referendum is because of expansion of the executive. So when the DP said something like they haven't cured the certain inclusivity, it's true, because what happens to this, what happens to this side of the divide when this side wins? Let's say you have the president, the prime minister, 2 deputies, and whatnot. Those are like 5 people. If it's 5 versus 5, and these 5 go in, what happened to these other 5? Because I believe, according to me, inclusivity doesn't mean every tribe must. We can't have 47 presidents or 47 prime ministers. I believe once you're sworn as a president in Uhuru Park or at Uhuru Park, holding the Constitution or the Bible up, you say you're president of the Republic of Kenya, not Kiambu or Nairobi. So you're supposed to be impartial. You're supposed to serve each and everyone equally, irrespective of tribe. And that is what we're talking about. If they want to cure inclusivity, we need to take care of that leadership that is there, because they are the cancer. They are the problem. Okay, fair enough. To finalize on what was mentioned at Bomas, there were concerns by senators the Senate being demeaned, and
I don't know whether it's quite unfortunate that they now support it, having gone to Naivasha. We'll be listening into some of the statements that were made at the Naivasha, where they are trying to lobby to see this document is passed without being contested. However, there was something else that was mentioned by the DP, and of course even ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi pointed it out. I want to ask you this question of the IEBC, Philip. How do you feel the issue of the commissioners being selected by political parties?
I think when we resort back to the IPPG model, we are going back to an electoral body that is less independent. We're actually going pre-2010 constitution. And I must state here that the issue is not really on where these commissioners are coming from or who they represent. They might represent political parties, they might represent religious organizations. The issue is the substance of the people who get into these offices. As presently structured under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, IEBC is very independent. But then we get problems when the people who have been selected into these independent offices do not meet the threshold of integrity. They do not meet any moral standard. And I think we have seen with the debacle that we experienced with the commissioners. You know, there was the trio that resigned yet did not resign, and now we have seen them being rewarded with some appointments by the president. And it goes to show that these are people who could not make a stand and defend the constitution and the office that they had been selected into. So my understanding of what the issue is with IEBC and electoral bodies across the world, because the integrity of an election rests with the managers of that election. And for us, we have an IEBC whose commissioners do not meet the threshold of integrity. If we pick one by one, we can identify men and women who are not decisive, men and women who have people pulling their strings. And I think we have examples all over. What we've been experiencing is, commissioners leaving. And a colleague of mine mentioned that most of the time they leave with tales. And some of them plan to, publish books and tell us stories about the experiences there. Yet when we counted on them to make a stand of integrity and ensure that our elections are integrous elections, they did not do so. So I think the problem is that we are having people who do not have integrity occupying offices of integrity. And that is the malady that IEBC has been facing.
All right, we'll be listening into what Deputy President Ruto said after conspicuously missing at the consensus in Naivasha. He had a delegate from Ukambani region. Actually, let's hear what he said in regards to the consensus of this BBI report.
And I think we will all be respectful to what has been said about building consensus and about reasoning together, if we can find the mechanism and the place when all of us can come together. It's not necessary to divide the country. It's not necessary to create unnecessary division. And whatever it is, in this scenario, there could be those who are looking for how to make money from the referendum. I want to advise them, there are many tenders they can apply so that they can make money. Let them leave this constitutional making as a Kenyan process. There are those who think they can use this for politics. Let them wait for 2022. We will all do politics. For now, let us find a mechanism for this constitutional moment so that and bring all Kenyans.
So the Deputy President is trying to say that there could be some people trying to make money out of it, and maybe if we could get some of his comments from earlier statements he has made in public. He always say, I am not mad, I am the Deputy President, and he's not drunk. He's not drunk. What do you make of these particular statements, Noordean?
It's unfortunate, but it's true. You see, in every situation, or in any crisis that we might face, we always have those, the so-called, they call them cartels. We don't know who cartels are. They call them entrepreneurs. Those people who always go there to make money. That is, easily, you can just check the COVID millionaires. We're having a crisis, a pandemic, but the people who are becoming billionaires overnight. Now, this BBI process will leave us with two things. One, political formations. Two, new billionaires. That is true. Now, at the end of the day, we're going to ask ourselves one question. Then, is the BBI meant for you and I? That's the question. Because if it were for you and I, then they would consider what we want. Because someone right now would rather have a house, would rather have school fees, would rather have the next meal and employment than having to run around being told about BBI and we're going for a referendum.